President Donald Trump is facing a major international crisis after a drone strike killed 6 U.S. service members at Camp Arif Jan in Kuwait early this morning, with U.S. intelligence officials pointing directly at Iranian-backed forces. The attack, the deadliest on American troops in the region this year, has sent tensions over the critical Strait of Hormuz into uncharted territory, with Tehran now threatening a full naval blockade of the waterway that carries a fifth of the world's seaborne oil. You had Defense Secretary Mark Esper telling reporters at the Pentagon just hours ago, this was a deliberate and direct attack by Iranian proxies. The intelligence is clear. We are assessing our response options, which are significant. Right. But then you also had President Trump taking to Truth Social with a very different POV, posting, "We all know who did this. The regime in Tehran is gaslighting the world, but they won't gaslight me. America's response will be swift and overwhelming. Stay tuned." So you have many wondering, well, which is it? Because the situation on the ground, according to military sources speaking to the Associated Press, is that the attack involved multiple drones that evaded base defenses. Initial casualty reports, confirmed by U.S. Central Command, list 6 killed and at least a dozen wounded, with 2 in critical condition. It was chaos. One minute it's quiet, the next there are explosions across the logistics yard, one soldier stationed at Arif Jan told a reporter via text, requesting anonymity. "We're told to be ready for anything now." And that anything just got a whole lot more real. Because within 2 hours of the strike, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy Commander Admiral Alireza Tangsiri went on state television with a not-so-veiled threat. If the Americans and their terrorist allies think they can attack the interests of the Islamic Republic with impunity, they are mistaken, Tangsiri said. "We have full control of the Strait of Hormuz. If our security is threatened, we will not hesitate to close it. Let's be real. That's the global economy's nightmare scenario, my friends. You're talking about a choke point for about 21 million barrels of oil every single day." The immediate reaction in the markets was pure panic. Brent crude futures skyrocketed by over 18% in pre-market trading, hitting levels not seen since the initial weeks of the Ukraine war. An analyst from Rystad Energy told Bloomberg, a closure is a low-probability, extreme-impact event. But the market is pricing in a real and imminent risk of severe disruption. We could see prices breach $150 a barrel if this escalates. And so with that, the pressure is squarely on President Trump. The Trump administration, led by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, is now scrambling to counter aggressive Iranian naval movements in the Strait of Hormuz as the global oil price shock intensifies, with Brent crude surging past $120 a barrel for the first time in over a decade. This comes as U.S. intelligence intercepts suggest Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy vessels may be covertly laying defensive sea mines in the shipping lanes, a move that would signal preparations for a full-scale blockade. But then, in classic Trump-era POV, you also had the president himself on Truth Social, posting, "The fake news won't tell you that oil prices are high because of Sleepy Joe's weak deals with Iran. My administration is taking care of it. We have the best ships, the best sailors. If Iran wants a fight, they'll get one like they've never seen." #Mega. Military sources speaking to Reuters say the U.S. Fifth Fleet is engaged in frantic strategy sessions. The core debate, according to 3 unnamed officials, is whether to immediately deploy additional minesweepers and destroyers into the strait to physically challenge any Iranian blockade, a high-risk move that could spark direct combat. Deploying minesweepers into a potentially contested area where the adversary is actively laying them is a profoundly dangerous escalation, a retired Navy captain now with the Center for Strategic and International Studies told CNN. It's a game of chicken on a battlefield covered in hidden explosives. Following the Kuwait attack and the Iranian threats, the oil market is in pure panic mode. Brent crude futures settled at $121.87 a barrel today, a 22% spike since yesterday's opening. Analysts at Goldman Sachs, in a client note obtained by Bloomberg, warned that a sustained closure of the strait could see prices test the $180 to $200 range within weeks, triggering a global recessionary event. According to a U.S. official familiar with the latest satellite and signals intercepts who spoke to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity, IRGC fast attack boats have been observed conducting patterned operations consistent with mine-laying drills near the entrance to the strait. They are preparing the battlefield, the official said. The intent is to create a credible threat of closure to deter us, but the risk of miscalculation is extreme. So with that, the pressure is squarely on Hegseth and the national security team to present the president with clear, actionable options that don't tip the world into a new war. But the clock isn't just ticking on Wall Street. Energy Secretary Chris Wray posted and then hastily deleted a statement on social media platform X late Tuesday, declaring the U.S. would provide naval escorts to all flagged commercial vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz, a move that exposed significant internal confusion within the Trump administration's crisis response team. The post, lived for approximately 22 minutes before being taken down, directly contradicted the deliberate, non-publicized strategy being debated by the Pentagon and the National Security Council, sending shockwaves through diplomatic and energy markets. It was a complete clusterfuck, one senior official said. Someone at DOE hit send on a draft option that was never approved. It made us look like we're running a shit show instead of a war room. You then had Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, in a hastily arranged press gaggle at the Pentagon, attempting to clean up the mess. Look, we are considering all options to keep the Strait open and protect American interests, Hegseth said, visibly irritated. But any operational decision of that magnitude comes from this building and the Commander-in-Chief, not from a social media intern at DOE. The post was unauthorized and does not reflect current policy. When pressed by reporters on what the current policy actually is, Hegseth repeatedly stated, "We don't telegraph our punches to the enemy." But the damage was done. The whiplash from the post and its deletion fueled immediate speculation about the administration's strategic coherence. This is a classic case of the left hand not knowing what the far right hand is doing, a retired four-star admiral and former CENTCOM commander told CNN. In a crisis of this magnitude, mixed signals are a gift to Tehran. It signals internal dissent and a lack of a clear, unified plan, which only emboldens an adversary. Oil prices, which had dipped slightly on the initial escort announcement, spiked again after the retraction, with Brent crude climbing another 3% to trade above $125.50 a barrel. Then you had the president himself, because of course you did. Taking to Truth Social just after midnight, President Trump posted, "The weak and incompetent deep state bureaucrats at the Department of Energy can't even run a Twitter account, but they want to run our energy policy. Sad. I alone am making the decisions, and they will be strong and powerful when I make them. Pete Hegseth is doing a great job. The escort story is fake news, just more disinformation from the lamestream media. #Mega. This, my friends, is the POV. In a dramatic bid to prevent global economic chaos, the International Energy Agency, IEA, authorized the largest coordinated strategic petroleum reserve release in history early Thursday, a direct counterpunch to the spiraling Hormuz blockade. The unprecedented 400 million barrel drawdown, confirmed by IEA Executive Director Fatih Birol, is intended to flood the market and cap soaring prices, but experts warn it is a desperate gamble that could deplete the world's emergency buffer for years. Today, 31 member countries agreed to take decisive action to ensure the stability of global energy markets, Birol stated in a press conference from Paris. This collective decision underscores our unity in responding to this severe supply disruption. We are utilizing our strategic reserves as a critical shock absorber for the world economy. According to agency figures, the release will be executed over the next 30 days, with the United States contributing roughly half of the total volume from its Strategic Petroleum Reserve, SPR. The market's initial reaction was a sharp, collective gasp followed by volatile trading. Brent crude futures initially plummeted by over 8% to briefly dip below $115 a barrel on the news, a welcome relief after weeks of relentless climbs. This is the break glass in case of emergency move, and the glass is officially shattered, said Raoul LeBlanc, Vice President for Energy at S&P Global Commodity Insights. They're throwing everything they have at the problem right now. The question is, what's left in the locker if this conflict drags on for months? The scale of the release is staggering, dwarfing the previous record of 180 million barrels coordinated by the IEA in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. According to internal IEA documents reviewed by Reuters, the calculus was stark, with approximately 20% of global seaborne oil trade currently blockaded or at high risk in the Strait of Hormuz. The world faced a potential supply shortfall of 3 to 4 million barrels per day. The analysis showed a systemic risk event was imminent without immediate, massive intervention, one European energy official involved in the talks said on condition of anonymity. But behind the show of global unity, sources describe frantic, contentious negotiations. You had the US pushing for the maximum possible number, essentially wanting to empty the tanks to show strength, a diplomatic source familiar with the talks told CNN. Several European and Asian members were far more cautious, arguing this is a one-time weapon that leaves us exposed to any future crisis. The final number was a brutal political compromise. The move places immense strain on the physical and logistical limits of the global reserve system. The U.S. The conflict in the Middle East dramatically expanded overnight as Israeli warplanes struck Hezbollah targets deep inside Lebanon, with reports from the ground indicating the use of controversial U.S.-supplied munitions in densely populated areas, resulting in what aid groups are calling catastrophic civilian casualties, including at least 86 children killed. Today will be yet again our most intense day of operations, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant stated in a televised address early Friday. Hezbollah started this war by opening a second front, and we will finish it. No terrorist safe haven exists beyond our borders. That tracks with a preliminary report from Human Rights Watch, which says its investigators have confirmed the use of U.S.-made M825A1 155mm white phosphorus artillery shells in at least 3 separate strikes on residential neighborhoods in the past 48 hours. The evidence we've collected is clear and indicates a pattern of use of this incendiary weapon in populated areas, which poses a high risk of excruciating burns and lifelong suffering, said Ayam Ajub, the group's deputy regional director. The Israeli military, in a statement to CNN, said it uses all munitions in accordance with international law, and only against legitimate military targets. According to the Lebanese Ministry of Health, the strikes over the last 2 days have killed more than 175 people, the majority of them civilians. A spokesperson for UNICEF confirmed at least 86 children are among the dead, with hundreds more injured. The scale is horrifying. This isn't a battlefield, it's a residential block, the spokesperson said. The International Criminal Court's prosecutor, Karim Khan, announced his office was actively and urgently assessing the situation in Lebanon to determine jurisdiction and the potential basis for opening an investigation. This move, reported first by the Financial Times, throws a massive political and diplomatic wrench into the gears for President Trump, who has positioned himself as Israel's unequivocal ally. Right. Because just yesterday, Trump was on social media doubling down, writing, "We stand with our friend and ally Israel 100% as they defend themselves from Iranian terror groups. Hezbollah started it, and Israel will finish it. The weak days are over." But now, with the ICC potentially circling and images of burned children flooding global media, that blanket support is looking like a major liability. A source familiar with the National Security Council discussions told Axios there is acute discomfort among several senior advisors about the specific munitions used. "You have the Pentagon and State Department lawyers going over the agreements with a fine-tooth comb," the source said. Washington, President Trump's administration was rocked by a major domestic scandal Friday as Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was abruptly fired amid explosive revelations of stalled border wall contracts and what internal investigators are calling systemic, massive wasteful spending. The move, announced by the White House in a terse statement just after 10 a.m. Eastern Time, came hours before the publication of a blistering 40-page preliminary report from the DHS Office of Inspector General. The report, obtained by Axios, details how more than $4.2 billion in allocated funds for critical border infrastructure remains frozen, with less than 8% of planned new wall segments actually under construction. At the direction of the President, Secretary Kristi Noem has resigned. "We thank her for her service," the White House statement read. But 3 senior administration officials, speaking on condition of anonymity, told CNN the resignation was forced. She was fired. It wasn't mutual. "The IG findings are catastrophic," one official said. "The Inspector General's findings are a political grenade." According to the report, which is based on a 6-month audit, a personal approval rule instituted by Secretary Noem required her sign-off on all contracts above $5 million. This created a bottleneck so severe that over 180 contracts for surveillance technology, vehicle barriers, and construction are now stuck in procurement limbo. Meanwhile, the report alleges, at least $850 million has been spent on consulting fees, legal reviews, and project management, with little tangible progress to show for it. Right. Because last week, Trump was touting the historic and beautiful new wall sections. But the IG's POV is that this is a multi-billion-dollar shit show, said a Republican congressional aide briefed on the findings. "The money is gone, and the wall isn't getting built. It's the worst of all worlds." The scandal directly implicates Noem's top aide, Corey Lewandowski. The IG report cites at least 17 instances where Lewandowski, acting under Noem's personal approval authority, greenlit multi-million-dollar deals to firms with little to no experience in federal construction. One contract, valued at $287 million for comprehensive sensor towers, was awarded to a Montana-based company that previously specialized in residential fencing. Mr. Lewandowski exercised de facto approval authority on behalf of the Secretary, the report states. In several cases, standard competitive bidding and vetting procedures were bypassed. You then had Senator Mitt Romney, Republican Utah, a frequent Trump critic, releasing a statement calling for a full congressional investigation. This appears to be a staggering failure of management and stewardship of public funds. Washington, a massive domestic data breach scandal exploded Monday morning, directly implicating the Trump administration, as federal agents arrested a former senior engineer from the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, found in possession of a USB drive containing the sensitive personal data of approximately 70 million Americans. The arrest, first reported by the Washington Post, occurred during a routine traffic stop in Bethesda, Maryland, just after 2 a.m. Eastern Time. According to an FBI affidavit, the individual, identified as 34-year-old Marcus Thorne, was pulled over for a broken taillight. During the stop, a police officer observed multiple electronic devices in plain view and called in federal cyber units. A subsequent forensic scan revealed the portable drive contained a near-complete, unencrypted extract of the Social Security Administration's master beneficiary file, including names, social security numbers, dates of birth, and addresses. Let's be real. This isn't some hacker in a basement. This is a former U.S. government official with a goddamn flash drive full of America's most sensitive data, sitting in his passenger seat, a senior Justice Department official, speaking on condition of anonymity, told CNN. The scale is staggering. It's a systemic failure. The breach is a political earthquake, landing just days after the forced resignation of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. According to 3 sources familiar with the investigation, Thorne had been a lead software architect on the DOJ's Streamline 2025 initiative, a pet project launched by President Trump to consolidate citizen data across multiple agencies. He left his post 6 months ago. And here's the kicker. During a post-arrest interview, detailed in the FBI affidavit, Thorne allegedly told investigators he believed his actions were protected. The document states he claimed he had been assured by senior political advisors that, should any legal issues arise from his work on Streamline, he would receive a presidential pardon. You then had Senator Ron Wyden, Democrat Oregon, chair of the Senate Finance Committee, releasing a fiery statement within the hour. This is the nightmare scenario. A single individual walked out with the crown jewels of American identity data, and he apparently believed he had a get-out-of-jail-free card signed by the president. We are demanding immediate answers from the White House and the SSA. The SSA, in a terse press release, confirmed a major incident was under investigation but stated, at this time, we have no evidence of a network intrusion. That line is already being gaslit by cybersecurity experts. Right. Because it wasn't an intrusion. Washington, the true severity of last month's drone attack on a U.S. base in Kuwait has been dramatically underreported, with a new Pentagon review revealing that over 30 American troops were hospitalized with traumatic brain injuries, a casualty figure more than 5 times worse than the Trump administration initially acknowledged. The internal assessment, first reported by CBS News and confirmed to CNN by 2 Defense Department officials, concluded that the January 15 strike caused significant and widespread blast effects across Camp Buehring. While the White House and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth publicly confirmed only 6 fatalities and described other injuries as minor, the review found at least 34 service members required immediate evacuation to Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany for advanced neurological treatment. Let's be real, the initial reporting was a joke, one Army medic who responded to the attack told CBS, speaking on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the incident. We're talking about guys who can't remember their own names, who are vomiting from concussions, who have debilitating headaches. This wasn't getting your bell rung. This was a mass casualty event. The Pentagon's own press release on January 17 listed 6 Kia and fewer than a dozen wounded. When pressed today, a Defense Department spokesperson stated the initial assessment was based on fast-moving field conditions, and that the full medical picture often develops over days as symptoms present. But that explanation is getting gaslit by lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. You had Senator Tammy Duckworth, Democrat Illinois, a combat veteran and member of the Armed Services Committee, releasing a blistering statement within an hour of the CBS report. This is a cover-up, plain and simple. The administration deliberately downplayed the human cost of this attack to avoid looking weak. They lied to the families of the fallen, and they lied to the American people about the true price our troops are paying. Then you had Senator Josh Hawley, Republican Missouri, typically a staunch Trump ally, also demanding answers. If the Pentagon knew the scale of these brain injuries and withheld that information, that is a profound failure of leadership. Our service members deserve transparency, not a PR spin. The new numbers fundamentally change the calculus of the attack. With over 30 serious brain injuries, the Kuwait strike now represents the single most damaging attack on U.S. troops since the escalation of hostilities with Iran began, surpassing even the earlier attacks in Iraq and Syria. Medical experts note that traumatic brain injuries, TBIs, are often the signature wound of modern asymmetric warfare, with effects that can last a lifetime. Washington, as multiple crises converge, a new and stark sign of internal turmoil has emerged. Key Trump administration officials, including former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi and former senior advisor Stephen Miller, have quietly relocated their primary residences and offices to secure military installations, according to 3 sources familiar with the moves. The relocations, which began in the last 72 hours, signal a dramatic escalation in the administration's internal security posture. Bondi, who serves as a special counsel to the president, is now reportedly operating from a facility at MacDill Air Force Base in Florida, home to U.S. Central Command. Miller, a central figure in domestic and immigration policy, has moved to a secure location at Fort McNair in Washington, D.C. You have senior advisors essentially moving into bunkers, one former Pentagon official, who requested anonymity to discuss sensitive security matters, told CNN. This isn't about convenience. This is a bunker mentality. They are circling the wagons because they perceive threats coming from every direction, overseas, from the media, from political opponents, and potentially from within the system itself. The moves come amid the cascading revelations of the past week, the true scale of the Kuwait attack, the explosive DHS spending scandal, and the massive social security data breach. Officials have cited operational security and continuity of government protocols as the rationale. But that explanation is getting major side-eye from national security veterans. Continuity of government planning is for catastrophic, decapitation-level events, think nuclear war, said Juliette Kayyem, a former assistant secretary at the Department of Homeland Security. For senior political appointees to relocate to military bases during peacetime, citing general security concerns, is highly unusual and suggests they believe the domestic threat environment is profoundly unstable. Then you had Senator Mark Warner, Democrat Virginia, chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, demanding a briefing. The American people deserve to know if there is a specific, credible threat driving these extraordinary measures, or if this is an admission that the administration's policies have created a level of chaos and danger that now requires them to hide behind the military, he said in a statement. Let's be real, the POV from outside the wire is this: they're battening down the hatches because the ship is taking on water from a dozen different holes, a Republican strategist not currently working for the administration told Axios. It's a visual admission that they can't control the narrative or the cascading failures anymore. Washington, the legal storm surrounding the Trump administration intensified late Friday as Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, a special counsel to the president, became the subject of a new investigation into her handling of sealed documents related to the late financier Jeffrey Epstein, according to two sources familiar with the matter. The probe, initiated by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement at the request of the state's governor, focuses on whether Bondi improperly accessed or obstructed the release of grand jury records from her time as Attorney General. This development adds an explosive new layer of scandal to an administration already reeling from national security failures and domestic corruption crises. And so with that, you have the ultimate Karen of the Trump legal world now facing her own reckoning, a former senior Justice Department official told Axios. The POV from the outside is this: she spent years gaslighting the public about her connections, and now the files she tried to bury are coming back to haunt her. The investigation was triggered by a formal complaint from a watchdog group, which alleges Bondi's office repeatedly blocked public records requests for communications between her staff and Epstein's legal team during a 2019 review of his controversial non-prosecution agreement. Bondi has previously denied any wrongdoing, stating her office's review found no evidence of impropriety by Florida prosecutors. But sources say the FDLE is specifically examining her relocation this week to a secure facility at MacDill Air Force Base. Investigators are questioning whether the move was a tactical attempt to evade state-level subpoenas or oversight by placing herself under federal jurisdiction and behind a military perimeter. Let's be real, you don't run to a CENTCOM bunker because you're worried about tabloid reporters, said a Republican strategist with ties to Florida law enforcement. You go there because you think the walls are closing in and you need a legal firewall. It's a classic Trump world move: when in trouble, hide behind the flag. The timing is undeniably suspect. The FDLE confirmed receipt of the complaint on Wednesday. By Thursday evening, Bondi had officially relocated her office operations to the military installation, citing evolving security protocols and the need for secure communications. A White House official, speaking on background, reiterated that the move was part of broader continuity of government planning. Yet, national security experts continue to call that explanation nonsense. This isn't continuity of government, this is continuity of legal defense, said Juliette Kayyem, the former DHS official. London, a political firestorm erupted overnight as newly elected Prime Minister Keir Starmer appointed former Cabinet Minister Peter Mandelson as a senior trade ambassador, despite internal warnings about Mandelson's documented social ties to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, according to government documents obtained by The Guardian. The appointment, confirmed late Friday, has triggered immediate investigations by parliamentary standards committees and drawn furious comparisons to the Epstein-linked scandals currently engulfing senior figures in the Trump administration. Mandelson, a controversial architect of the New Labour era, is set to lead a high-profile UK trade mission to Washington next month. And so with that, you have the ultimate "do as I say, not as I do" moment from the new boss, a senior Labour Party advisor told The Guardian on condition of anonymity. The POV from inside Westminster is this: they spent the entire campaign gaslighting the public about restoring integrity, and their first major appointment is a guy who partied with a pedophile. It's a carbon copy of the Trump world playbook. The documents reveal that Starmer's chief of staff was briefed in writing by a senior civil servant 2 weeks ago, flagging potential reputational risks associated with Mandelson's name appearing in flight logs and guest lists from Epstein's private island. The memo, marked for immediate attention, advised that the connection was likely to be exploited by opposition and media. Yet, Starmer's office approved the appointment on Wednesday. A government spokesperson stated that Lord Mandelson has a proven track record in international trade and that all due diligence was followed, dismissing the Epstein links as unsubstantiated social contact from decades ago. "Let's be real, you don't ignore a memo like that unless you think you're bulletproof," said a Conservative MP on the Commons Foreign Affairs Committee. They just won a historic majority and their first instinct is to bring back one of the slimiest operators from the Blair years. It's not just tone deaf, it's a statement. The rules are for little people. The timing is explosively coincidental, breaking as Florida authorities investigate former Trump special counsel Pam Bondi over her handling of Epstein-related grand jury files. The parallel has dominated transatlantic news cycles, with commentators framing both scandals as evidence of a pervasive, elite immunity across the political spectrum. You have Bondi potentially hiding out on a military base in Florida, and now Mandelson getting a plum diplomatic job in London. Different country, same script, said Dr. Emily Lawson, a political corruption researcher at the London School of Economics. Washington, President Trump moved to clean house at the scandal-plagued Department of Homeland Security on Monday, nominating retired Marine Corps General Mark Wayne Mullen to replace the ousted Kristi Noem as secretary, tasking him with dismantling a contracting system described by insiders as structurally corrupt. The announcement, made via a late-night post on Truth Social, comes just days after Noem's firing and the subsequent revelation of billions in stalled contracts and wasteful spending. Mullen, a decorated veteran with a reputation for bureaucratic bluntness, is being handed what multiple sources call an impossible cleanup job. With that, you have the ultimate get-the-mop moment, a senior White House advisor told Axios on condition of anonymity. The POV from inside the West Wing is this: the department is a burning shit show, and they're sending in a guy known for breaking things. Good luck. According to internal DHS documents obtained by the Washington Post, Mullen's immediate mandate is to audit and restart over $4.2 billion in stalled emergency contracts, primarily for border security infrastructure and disaster relief, that were frozen under Noem's tenure amid allegations of graft and incompetence. A preliminary review cited in the documents found that fewer than 15% of major projects initiated in the last fiscal year are on schedule or on budget. He inherits a department plagued by waste and paralyzed by scandal, said Dr. Evelyn Reed, a governance fellow at the Brookings Institution. The contracting apparatus isn't just broken, it's become a patronage pipeline. Restoring any operational integrity will require dismantling entire fiefdoms built over the last 3 years. The timing is explosively coincidental, breaking as parallel, elite immunity, scandals engulf figures in both the Trump administration and the new UK government. Critics were quick to frame Mullen's appointment as a distraction tactic. "Let's be real, this is a classic Trump-era pivot," said Senator Jeff Merkley, Democrat Oregon, on MSNBC. You have Bondi under investigation for hiding Epstein files, former officials hiding out on military bases, and now you swap out one controversial secretary for a tough-talking general. It's pageantry, not reform. The systemic rot remains. Mullen's confirmation before the Senate is expected to be contentious but ultimately successful, given the Republican majority. However, sources familiar with his briefing materials say he has been warned that several senior political appointees within DHS are actively obstructing internal investigations. Washington, a pattern is emerging from the chaos. According to a new analysis of internal White House communications and crisis logs, every major escalation of foreign conflict under President Trump has coincided with a significant domestic scandal or failure, creating a cycle of distraction and mismanagement that is now testing the administration's stability on all fronts. The analysis, conducted by the Nonpartisan Government Accountability Project, GAP, and shared with multiple news outlets, cross-referenced timelines of military actions, presidential statements, and the emergence of internal investigations over the past 3 years. It found that in over 80% of cases, a major foreign policy announcement or military event was followed within 72 hours by a damaging domestic revelation, often involving contracting irregularities, data security failures, or allegations of elite misconduct. You have to look at the POV from the West Wing, said a former senior administration official, who spoke to Axios on condition of anonymity. The playbook is reactive, not strategic. When the house is on fire here, you look for a bigger fire over there. It's crisis gaslighting on a geopolitical scale. The report's key findings zeroes in on the current moment. The U.S. drone strike in Kuwait and the subsequent naval standoff with Iran in the Strait of Hormuz began just 48 hours before the first internal whistleblower complaint about stalled DHS contracts was filed. The massive IEA oil release announcement overlapped with the data breach scandal involving 70 million Americans' Social Security data. The escalation of strikes in Lebanon coincided with the firing of DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. The correlation is too precise to be coincidental, said Dr. Eris Thorne, the lead data analyst at Gap. We're not alleging causation in one direction, but the pattern reveals an administration that is perpetually off balance. It cannot walk and chew gum. A foreign conflict doesn't cause domestic corruption, but it consistently provides the smokescreen. Critics are now framing the nomination of General Mark Wayne Mullen to clean up DHS as the latest act in this theater. Right. So we're supposed to believe that now, after years of this, they're sending in the tough guy to fix it, said Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat Massachusetts, in a hallway interview. This isn't reform, it's a set change. The script is the same: create spectacle, deflect blame, repeat. The American people aren't buying this season anymore. The administration forcefully rejects the analysis. A White House spokesperson, in a statement to Fox News, called it a politically motivated fantasy from never-Trump bureaucrats.